The baby was dying. Sophia Bennett's screams had faded to whimpers after 41 hours of labor, and the monitor's irregular beeping told Rosa everything she needed to know. She stood outside the delivery room, mop in hand, listening to 12 of the world's best doctors admit defeat. "We're out of options," Dr. Harrison's voice cracked through the door. "Prep for emergency cesarean. We might lose them both." Hello guys, welcome to my channel where interesting stories of courage and hidden wisdom are told. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Rosa Martinez had been invisible for 17 years. At 52, she moved through the hospital's gleaming corridors like a ghost, pushing her cleaning cart past doctors who never met her eyes, nurses who spoke over her head, and wealthy patients who looked straight through her. She wore the same faded blue uniform every night, arrived at the same time, and left before dawn without a word to anyone. Invisibility had become her armor, her survival strategy in a country that had never quite felt like home. But tonight, invisibility felt like cowardice. She pressed her weathered hand against the delivery room door, feeling the vibrations of panic inside. The baby was posterior. She'd known it for hours, listening to the patterns of Sophia's pain, the specific quality of her screams. Face up, spine against spine, stuck in a position that modern medicine struggled to correct. Rosa's grandmother would have fixed this in minutes. Mama Luz had delivered over 600 babies in their Salvadoran village with those same ancient techniques, the ones passed down through 7 generations of midwives. The ones Rosa carried in her hands like a secret language. "Mrs. Bennett's blood pressure is dropping," a nurse called out urgently. Marcus Bennett's voice boomed with desperation. "I don't care what it costs. Do something, anything." Rosa closed her eyes and saw her grandmother's face. Mama Luz had been teaching her since she was 8 years old, guiding her small hands over pregnant bellies, teaching her to feel what machines couldn't see. "Listen with your fingers, mi niña," she'd whispered during midnight deliveries in their village. "The baby talks to you if you know how to hear." By age 12, Rosa had delivered her first baby alone when Mama Luz fell ill. By 18, women traveled 2 days by foot to request her hands at their births. That was a lifetime ago, before she'd crossed the border with $200 and a heart full of hope, before 17 years of scrubbing floors had nearly erased the healer she used to be. The delivery room door swung open and a resident rushed out, nearly knocking into Rosa. He didn't apologize, didn't even see her. She watched him sprint toward the surgical wing, and something inside her snapped. Her grandmother's voice echoed across decades. "When you know how to help and you stay silent, you become part of the harm." Rosa set down her mop. Her hands trembled as she knocked on the delivery room door, 3 sharp raps that seemed to echo through the expensive hallway like gunshots. The chaos inside paused for a heartbeat. Dr. Harrison opened the door, irritation flashing across his tired face. "Not now, we're in the middle of—" "I can help," Rosa said, her accented English quiet but firm. "I can turn the baby." The doctor blinked at her as if she'd spoken in tongues. Behind her, Rosa could see Sophia on the bed, pale as death, and Marcus Bennett pacing like a caged animal. Machines beeped their warnings. Nurses prepared equipment with urgent efficiency. "Ma'am, you need to leave. This is a restricted—" "The baby is posterior," Rosa interrupted, loud enough that everyone in the room could hear. "Face up, spine against spine, stuck in a position that modern medicine struggled to correct." Rosa's grandmother would have fixed this in minutes. Marcus Bennett's voice boomed with desperation. "I don't care what it costs. Do something, anything." "Please," Sophia's weak voice cut through the room like a blade. Everyone turned to look at her. She'd pushed herself up on one elbow, her face streaked with tears and sweat, her eyes locked on Rosa with desperate hope. "Please, let her try. The baby, I can feel it. Something's wrong. If the doctors can't help, maybe she can." "Sophia," She's not even a nurse, Marcos protested. She has no medical license, no training, no... I delivered 14 babies before I turned 20, Rosa said, stepping fully into the doorway. My grandmother delivered over 600, 7 generations of midwives. I learned to turn babies with my hands when your doctors were still in elementary school. The room fell silent except for the insistent beeping of the heart monitor. Dr. Harrison studied Rosa's face, searching for something, perhaps competence hidden beneath her janitor's uniform. If you're wrong, Santosina, he said slowly, that baby dies, the mother might die anyway, and you'll face criminal charges for practicing medicine without a license. Do you understand that? Rosa met his gaze without flinching. If I do nothing, they both die anyway. I've been listening to you try everything for 3 hours. You're out of ideas. I'm not. Sophia reached out her hand, beckoning. Please, I want her to try. Dr. Harrison looked at his team, at the monitors, at the clock. 5 minutes until they'd have to rush Sophia to surgery. A surgery that, given her current condition, might kill her before they even got the baby out. He'd seen enough death in his career to recognize it approaching. He stepped aside. 5 minutes, he said. That's all you get. One wrong move and we're going to surgery immediately. Rosa walked into that delivery room like she was walking into her destiny. 17 years of invisibility fell away with each step. She moved to Sophia's bedside, placed her hands on the swollen belly, and closed her eyes. The room held its breath. And Rosa began to feel what the machines couldn't measure, the exact position of a baby fighting to be born, waiting for hands that remembered the old ways.
Rosa's hands moved across Sophia's belly with the practiced grace of a dancer, fingers reading the terrain like braille. The doctors watched in skeptical silence as this janitor, this woman they'd passed in hallways for years without a second glance, performed an assessment that looked nothing like their textbook training. She wasn't measuring fundal height or checking cervical dilation. She was listening with her palms, feeling the conversation between mother and child that had been happening beneath all their interventions. The baby's shoulder is caught here, Rosa murmured, pressing gently on Sophia's left side. Head is tilted back, facing up toward your spine. That's why your back hurts so much, yes? Like fire. Sophia nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. Yes. Oh God, yes. How did you know? Because I felt this exact position 43 times before, Rosa said softly. She glanced at Dr. Harrison. Your machines tell you where the baby is. My hands tell me where the baby wants to go. Dr. Harrison crossed his arms, his jaw tight. We tried manual rotation twice. It didn't work. You tried to force it, Rosa said without accusation, her focus still on Sophia's belly. You pushed against the contraction, fighting the baby's natural movement. That's the difference between your medicine and mine. You fight, we dance. She placed both hands on Sophia's abdomen, one high and one low, and closed her eyes again. Marcus Bennett stood frozen near the window, his billionaire's confidence useless in this moment, his $18 billion unable to buy what this cleaning woman offered for free. His hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. Sophia, I need you to breathe with me, Rosa said, her voice dropping into a rhythm that felt ancient, almost like a lullaby. Deep breath in through your nose. Hold it. Now out through your mouth, slow, like you're blowing out a candle. Sophia followed her instructions, and as she exhaled, Rosa's hands began to move. Not pushing, not forcing, guiding. Her right hand applied gentle pressure just below Sophia's ribs, while her left hand cradled the lower curve of her belly. She was working with the baby's body, coaxing rather than commanding, feeling for the tiny shoulder that was preventing the turn. In my village, Rosa said quietly, her voice steady as her hands worked. The baby knows the way out. They've been practicing in the womb for months, turning and moving. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them which direction to go. A contraction began to build. Rosa felt it before the monitor registered it. "Good," she whispered. "Use this one. Don't fight it. Let your body soften. Imagine the baby sliding down like water, finding the path." Dr. Harrison stepped closer, watching Rosa's technique with growing fascination. Her hands moved in small, deliberate circles, applying pressure that seemed impossibly gentle yet purposeful. She was working between contractions, then pausing during them, letting Sophia's body do its natural work before resuming the guidance.
The old midwives taught us that birth is a conversation, Rosa explained, her hands never stopping their careful dance. The mother's body speaks, the baby answers. Our job is just to translate when the words get confused. Another contraction peaked. Sophia groaned, gripping the bed rails, and Rosa immediately felt it. The smallest shift. The baby's shoulder had moved a fraction of an inch. Her heart leapt, but she kept her face calm, her voice steady. "Good, mi amor. The baby is listening. One more like that." Marcus Bennett finally found his voice. "Is it working? Is something happening?" Dr. Harrison checked the monitor, his eyes widening slightly. "The fetal heart rate is stabilizing. Still not ideal, but better than it was 2 minutes ago." Rosa smiled without opening her eyes. "The baby feels safer now, less stuck. Heart slows down when you stop panicking." She pressed a little firmer on Sophia's right side, feeling the tiny body beneath her palms. "Come on, pequeño. Show them what you can do. Turn for mama." The room had gone so quiet that the only sounds were the beeping monitors and Sophia's breathing. Even the skeptical nurses had stopped their preparations, watching this impossible scene unfold. A cleaning woman with no medical degree, no license, no credentials, just 2 hands and 7 generations of knowledge, attempting what 12 top doctors couldn't achieve. In medical school, Dr. Harrison said, quietly, almost to himself, "We learned that posterior presentation requires intervention, C-section or forceps-assisted delivery. Manual rotation has a low success rate." He paused. "They never taught us this." "Because they forgot," Rosa said simply. "Your medicine is very young, maybe 300 years of hospitals and machines. My medicine is as old as women giving birth. Thousands of years of hands and heart and listening." Her fingers found a new position, applying gentle traction. Both are valuable, but sometimes the old ways remember what the new ways never learned. Another contraction began. Rosa coached Sophia through it, her voice a calm anchor in the storm of pain. "Breathe, breathe, yes, let your body open like a flower. Don't hold the pain, let it move through you." And then, like a miracle disguised as technique, Rosa felt it happen. The baby's shoulder released from where it had been wedged against Sophia's pelvis. The tiny head tilted, just slightly, beginning the rotation that would bring the face down and away from the spine. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't sudden. It was the gentle yielding of one position into another, as natural as water finding its level. "There," Rosa whispered, and for the first time in 3 hours, she smiled. "The baby is turning." Dr. Harrison watched the monitor, fetal heart rate improving, 140, 135. He looked at Rosa with something between amazement and disbelief. "How are you doing this?" "I'm not doing anything," Rosa said, her hands still guiding, still dancing with the baby's movement. "The baby is doing it. Sophia's body is doing it. I'm just helping them remember how." Marcus Bennett's legs seemed to give out. He sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. "Oh my God," he kept repeating. "Oh my God." The baby continued its slow rotation, each contraction bringing more progress. Rosa walked through 6 more contractions, her hands never forcing, always inviting. She felt the exact moment when the baby's head shifted into the anterior position, face down, ready to navigate the birth canal the way nature intended. "Dr. Harrison," Rosa said, opening her eyes and stepping back slightly, "check the position now." The doctor moved forward with his hands, performing the same assessment he'd done countless times that night. His expression transformed from skepticism to wonder. "Occiput anterior," he breathed. "Full rotation, perfect position." He looked at Rosa like she just performed surgery with a kitchen knife. "This shouldn't be possible. We tried everything." You tried your everything, Rosa said gently. You just hadn't tried mine. Another contraction built, and this time Sophia's body knew exactly what to do. The baby was born 17 minutes later, emerging into the world with a lusty cry that seemed to erase 42 hours of terror in a single breath. Sophia wept as they placed her daughter on her chest, the tiny girl pink and perfect and absolutely worth every second of struggle. Marcus Bennett, the billionaire who'd built empires with his bare hands, collapsed to his knees beside the bed, sobbing like a child himself. Rosa stood in the corner, quietly gathering the towels she'd used, preparing to fade back into invisibility the way she always had. Her work was done. The baby was safe. The mother was alive. That was all that mattered. She'd learned long ago not to expect gratitude from people who didn't see her in the first place. But Dr. Harrison blocked her path to the door. "Wait," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Please wait." The entire medical team had gathered around. Nurses, residents, the anesthesiologist who'd been preparing the surgical suite. They were all staring at Rosa with expressions she'd never seen directed at her before. Respect, awe, recognition. "What you just did," Dr. Harrison continued, struggling to find words. "I've been practicing obstetrics for 23 years. I've delivered over 4,000 babies. I've never seen anything like that. The precision, the intuition, He shook his head. "You saved 2 lives tonight with techniques I didn't even know existed." Rosa shifted uncomfortably, her hand twisting the edge of her cleaning smock. "I just did what my grandmother taught me. It's nothing special." "Nothing special?" Marcus Bennett had risen to his feet, his face still wet with tears. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, and before Rosa could react, he dropped to his knees in front of her. This man, whose net worth could buy hospitals, whose name opened doors to presidents and prime ministers, knelt before a janitor in a worn blue uniform. "You gave me my daughter. You saved my wife. How do I even begin to thank you for that?" "You don't need to thank me," Rosa said quietly, deeply uncomfortable with the attention. "I'm just glad they're both okay." "Just glad?" Marcus laughed, a sound caught between joy and disbelief. "Ma'am, Rosa, what's your full name?" "Rosa Elena Martinez." "Rosa Elena Martinez," he repeated, like a prayer. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did tonight. I'm going to—" "Please don't," Rosa said softly. "I could lose my job. I'm not licensed. I'm not supposed to touch patients. If the hospital administration finds out, then I'll buy the damn hospital," Marcus said fiercely. "I'll buy 10 hospitals. You are not losing anything except that mop and bucket, because starting tomorrow, you are never cleaning another floor." Dr. Harrison stepped forward. "He's right, Rosa. What you possess, this knowledge, these skills, they are extraordinary. They need to be documented, studied, taught. Do you realize how many difficult deliveries could be resolved with what you just demonstrated? How many unnecessary cesarean sections could be avoided?" Rosa looked between them, feeling the walls of her careful invisibility crumbling. For 17 years, she'd been safe in her anonymity. No one asked questions about her papers, her past, her status in this country. She came, she cleaned, she left. Simple, sustainable. But now, these men were talking about spotlight and recognition, and all she could think about was deportation, separation from the life she'd built, the small apartment she called home. "I appreciate what you are saying," Rosa began carefully, "but I'm just a custodian. I don't have degrees or certifications. In your world, I'm nobody." "You are not nobody to me," Sophia said from the bed, her voice weak but clear. "You are the woman who saved my daughter's life. You are the woman who knew what 12 experts didn't know." She looked at her husband. "Marcus, we need to do something real." Marcus Bennett's mind was already racing. You could see it in his eyes, that calculating expression of a man who solved problems by throwing resources at them. $100,000, he said abruptly, "as a thank you, and I'll fund whatever training or certification you need to practice legally. I'll hire the best immigration lawyers if that's an issue. Mr. Bennett, Rosa interrupted gently. I don't need your money. I have enough to live on. The room fell silent. A billionaire offering 6 figures to a woman who made $12 an hour, and she was refusing. Marcus looked genuinely confused, like she'd spoken a foreign language. Then what do you need? He asked. Tell me what would make this right. Rosa thought about her village, about the young girls there who carried the same knowledge she did, but had no way to use it, no recognition, no voice. She thought about Mama Luz, who delivered hundreds of babies and died without a single doctor acknowledging her expertise. She thought about all the women in all the villages across El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, midwives whose hands held generations of wisdom that the modern world dismissed as primitive superstition. A place, Rosa said slowly, the idea forming as she spoke. A place where what I know can be shared, where women like me, traditional birth attendants, can work alongside doctors like you, where the old wisdom and the new medicine meet. Dr. Harrison's eyes lit up. A birthing center, integrating traditional midwifery techniques with modern obstetric care. But more than that, Rosa continued, gaining confidence. A training program. Teach your doctors what my grandmother taught me. Teach them to feel what machines can't measure, to work with the body instead of just intervening. And let women like me learn from you, the medical knowledge we don't have, the emergency procedures, the science behind what we do by instinct. Marcus pulled out his phone immediately. I'll fund it, whatever it costs. 10 million to start, 20 if you need it. We'll build it right here, attached to this hospital. Marcus, Sophia called from the bed. Make it 50 million. Make it the best program in the country. She smiled at Rosa. You gave me my daughter. Let me help you give this gift to other mothers. Rosa felt tears prick her eyes for the first time that night. She'd spent 17 years invisible, and now these people were offering to make her seen. Not just seen, but celebrated. It was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Dr. Harrison extended his hand. I want to be part of this. I want to learn from you, Rosa. Tonight you taught me that there are entire dimensions of birth knowledge that modern medicine has abandoned or forgotten. I'd be honored to help bridge that gap. Rosa shook his hand, feeling the calluses on her palm, 17 years of mopping floors pressed against his surgeon's fingers. 2 different kinds of hands, both capable of healing in their own way. There's one condition, she said firmly. It's not about me. It's about the knowledge. If we do this, we document everything. We create protocols that can be taught, replicated, passed on. My grandmother's wisdom, her mother's wisdom, all the way back. It can't die with me. It needs to live in a form that survives. Agreed, Marcus said immediately. We'll bring in anthropologists, medical historians, the best documentation team money can buy. A nurse who had been silent throughout the delivery finally spoke up, and her voice was tentative. Could someone like me learn this? I mean, I'm a trained nurse, but I never learned anything like what you just did. Rosa smiled at her. If you are willing to unlearn some things first, yes, the hardest part isn't learning the techniques. It's learning to trust your hands more than the machines, to feel instead of just measure. I want to learn, the nurse said firmly. Other heads nodded around the room. Marcus was already making calls, his voice carrying that particular tone of a man who decided something would happen and was now simply arranging reality to match his will. Jeremy, I need you to draft something. Partnership agreement with the hospital. New wing, new program. Yes, tonight. I don't care what time it is. This is important. Rosa watched him, then looked at Sophia cradling her newborn daughter, then at Dr. Harrison, who was already pulling up medical journals on his tablet, searching for references to traditional birth techniques. She thought about walking into this hospital 17 years ago with nothing but a mop and a secret, and walking out tonight as something else entirely. Not a janitor, not invisible, a healer finally acknowledged. 3 months later, Rosa stood in front of a classroom of medical students, residents, and practicing obstetricians, her hands resting on a model of a pregnant belly. The Traditional Birth Wisdom Center occupied an entire wing of the hospital now, its walls painted in warm earth tones that reminded Rosa of home. Gone was the faded blue uniform. She wore professional clothing now, though she'd insisted on comfort over formality. Loose linen pants and an embroidered tunic that Mama Luz would have approved of. The first thing you must understand, she told the room of eager faces, is that birth is not a medical emergency. It's a natural process that sometimes needs medical support. There's a difference. Dr. Harrison sat in the front row, taking notes like a first-year student. He'd become Rosa's most dedicated pupil, spending hours learning to feel the subtle shifts and movements she detected so easily. His hands, trained for precision and intervention, were slowly learning patience and partnership with the body's natural wisdom. The program had faced resistance, of course. Hospital administrators worried about liability. Some doctors dismissed it as pseudoscience, dressed up with philanthropic dollars. The state medical board had launched an investigation into Rosa's credentials, or lack thereof, until Marcus Bennett's lawyers and a carefully worded consultant position had satisfied the bureaucratic requirements. Rosa wasn't practicing medicine, she was teaching traditional techniques to licensed practitioners who could then apply them within their scope of practice. It was a careful dance, this balance between honoring old ways and satisfying new rules. But the results were undeniable. In 3 months, Rosa had consulted on 34 difficult deliveries. 31 had ended in successful vaginal births after she'd applied her rotation techniques. The 3 that hadn't, Rosa had been the first to call for cesarean sections, recognizing true emergencies that her hands alone couldn't fix. That discernment, knowing when traditional methods worked and when modern intervention was essential, became the cornerstone of what they were building. Dr. Harrison, Rosa said now, gesturing him forward. Show them what you've learned. The doctor approached the model, placed his hands where Rosa had taught him, and closed his eyes. I'm feeling for the baby's position first, not just where the head is, but how the shoulders are aligned, whether the spine is anterior or posterior. The mother's contractions will tell me if the baby is working with or against the pelvis. Rosa watched with quiet pride. He still wasn't as sensitive as someone raised in this tradition, but he was learning. More importantly, he was humble enough to admit what he didn't know. A young woman in the back raised her hand. Dr. Martinez. Just Rosa, please, she interrupted gently. The hospital had given her the honorary title of Cultural Birth Specialist, which came with the automatic doctor courtesy, but she'd never finished high school. The title felt borrowed. Rosa, the woman corrected. I'm Isabella Chen. My mother was a midwife in Taiwan before we immigrated. She used techniques like these, but I was always told they weren't scientific, weren't valid. I went to medical school to learn real medicine. Her voice cracked slightly. Watching you work, learning this feels like coming home to something I didn't know I'd lost. Rosa crossed the room and took Isabella's hands. Then you carry 2 gifts now. Your mother's wisdom and your medical training. That makes you a bridge, like all of us here are learning to be. She addressed the whole class. Some of you come from traditions like mine, others don't, but we all serve the same purpose, helping babies come safely into the world and keeping mothers alive and well. The method matters less than the outcome. After class, Rosa found Marcus and Sophia waiting in her office. Their daughter, Aurora, named after the dawn that had broken just as she was born, slept peacefully in Sophia's arms. They visited weekly, these strange friends that crisis had made. Marcus had been true to his word. $50 million had built the center, funded the program, and established scholarships for traditional birth attendants to receive formal training without losing their cultural knowledge. We have news, Marcus said, his excitement barely contained. 3 more hospitals want to implement programs based on yours. 1 in Los Angeles, 1 in Chicago, 1 in Miami, areas with large immigrant populations where traditional midwifery knowledge is strong but unrecognized. Rosa sat down slowly, overwhelmed. 3 hospitals? 7, actually, Sophia added with a smile. 4 more are in discussions. Your work here, the documented outcomes, the way you've integrated traditional and modern approaches, it's creating a model that other institutions want to replicate. But I can't be in 7 places at once, Rosa protested. You don't have to be, Marcus said. That's the beauty of what you've built. You've created a framework that can be taught, documented, shared. We've been filming your consultations, with patient permission, of course. Those become teaching materials. The protocols you've developed with Dr. Harrison, they are being written into medical textbooks. Your grandmother's knowledge isn't just surviving, Rosa, it's spreading. Rosa thought of Mama Luz, who died 10 years ago in their village without ever seeing a hospital, without ever receiving recognition for the hundreds of lives she'd saved. My grandmother would not believe this, she whispered. She'd be proud, Sophia said firmly. We're naming the Los Angeles Center after her, the Luz Martinez Center for Traditional Birth Wisdom, if that's okay with you. Rosa couldn't speak. She could only nod as tears streamed down her face. The following week, a young medical student, Carmen, approached Rosa after a demonstration. I need to tell you something, Carmen said, her voice trembling with emotion. My abuela was a partera in rural Mexico. When I told my family I wanted to be a doctor, she was so happy. But when I came home after my first year of medical school, talking about all the interventions and procedures I was learning, she looked sad. She said, they're teaching you to fight birth instead of working with it. I didn't understand what she meant then. I thought she was just old-fashioned. Carmen wiped her eyes. You've shown me what she meant. You've given me permission to honor both parts of my heritage, the medicine I'm learning and the wisdom she carried. Thank you for that. Rosa crossed the room and took Carmen's hands. Then you carry 2 gifts now, your mother's wisdom and your medical training. That makes you a bridge, like all of us here are learning to be. She addressed the whole class. Some of you come from traditions like mine, others don't, but we all serve the same purpose, helping babies come safely into the world and keeping mothers alive and well. The method matters less than the outcome. 6 months into the program, the data was undeniable. The hospital's cesarean section rate had dropped by 18%. Patient satisfaction scores had increased dramatically, especially among immigrant women and women of color who'd previously reported feeling dismissed or misunderstood by medical staff. Complications from difficult deliveries had decreased, and perhaps most importantly, a generation of doctors was learning to see birth through a different lens, not as a problem to be solved, but as a process to be supported. Dr. Harrison, Rosa said now, gesturing him forward. I think I can feel it, he said. Posterior position, left shoulder anterior. Is that right? Rosa placed her hands beside his, felt the terrain he was describing. Almost, she said with approval. The shoulder is a bit more lateral than you think, but yes, you're learning. You're really learning. Together they worked, doctor and healer, new medicine and old wisdom, machine data and hand knowledge. And between them, another miracle disguised as technique, another baby finding its way home. Rosa had stopped being invisible, but she'd become something better. A bridge between worlds, a keeper of ancestral knowledge who'd found a way to make it matter in a modern age. Mama Luz's hands lived on in hers, and through her teaching, they would live in countless others. The baby was born 20 minutes later, crying lustily, perfectly healthy. The mother wept with joy. Dr. Harrison looked at Rosa with gratitude and wonder, and Rosa simply smiled, already thinking about the next birth, the next student, the next generation who would carry this wisdom forward. She'd spent 17 years invisible, but she'd never been powerless. She'd always carried the gift. She just needed the right moment, the right crisis, the right courage to let the world finally see what her hands could do. And now that the world was watching, she had no intention of disappearing again. The moral lesson here is that true wisdom doesn't always wear a white coat or carry credentials. Sometimes it lives in the calloused hands of someone society overlooks, a custodian, a grandmother, an immigrant who cleans floors while carrying generations of knowledge in her fingertips. Rosa's story teaches us that expertise comes in many forms, and the most valuable solutions often emerge when we are humble enough to listen to voices we've been trained to ignore. Your background is not your limitation, it's your foundation. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is step forward when the world expects you to stay invisible, trusting that what you know matters, even when nobody's been paying attention. Remember, being overlooked doesn't mean you're powerless. It just means your moment to shine hasn't arrived yet. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and tell us what you learned in the comments below.